Thank you, everybody, for listening in to another episode of Her Wild Outdoors. Today, we have an awesome guest, Sue Tidwell. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Amy, for having me. I appreciate you having me on here.
Well, it's awesome to be able to have someone join the ranks of the Her Wild Outdoors episodes that has such a passion like you do for not just the outdoors, but for a community that we are building and striving to keep where it is and make it better. And so I'm excited to get to talk to you and hear a little bit of your background and how this all started. So would you do me a favor and give us just a little intro on who you are and kind of how Africa and how the outdoors has impacted your life?
Sure. Well, I grew up, I'm Sue Tidwell, and I grew up in rural Pennsylvania. So, I've always been around hunting. Deer hunting was pretty much a religion in that part of the country. So I grew up around hunting and eating wild meat. And so hunting was normal for me. I was never against it or anything, but I was never a hunter myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up marrying a hunter. Needless to say, that just fell right in line with it. I met my husband in Anchorage, Alaska when I was living up there. And one thing led to another, and we got married. And then we moved to rural Idaho where he grew up. Well, my husband had always dreamt of Africa. And I had always dreamt of Africa. But as a non-hunter, of course, my view was always a lodge and going to the parks and all the animals are going to stand there and pose for you. And you're just going to see all these magnificent things. But my husband's dream of Africa was a hunting safari. So, and he didn't want he wanted like in the wild, like he wanted to be as old fashioned, old time hunt as possible. So, and I was really torn because as much as I understood hunting in America, I was really torn about hunting in Africa. And it just seemed different somehow hunting, the animal, like zebras. We grew up in Idaho. We were surrounded, his family has like 30, 40 horses. So, that's a major part of the ranch. So the idea of killing a zebra, for instance, it just boggled my mind.
Yeah, it was foreign. It's totally foreign. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's an exotic animal, and you just, I grew up, loving Tarzan and all that whole dream, but anyway, so I really was torn, and I was also scared. I knew we were going to be sleeping in a tent out in the middle of nowhere, hundreds of miles from civilization. And, I had read, I don't know if you ever read Peter Capstick's book, Death in the Long Grass, but oh my gosh, that is a must read. And it will scare the living crap out of you. So don't read it before you go to Africa, but It's a fantastic book, I think, anyway. But so I had, visions of black mambas and lions tearing through tents and just all these kinds of things that that they're a rarity, but at the same time, they're in your mind, and when I went to Idaho, I went hunting. Even though I don't hunt, I love going on hunts with Rick. So I love that part of it. I love being in the wilderness. I love being outside. I love the adventure that comes with it, and you never know what's going to happen next. I love all that stuff. But I was scared about Africa. I mean, that was, I was thinking of a tent like in Idaho where, mice and snakes can crawl under the tent. So I'm thinking of black mambas crawling under the tent.
Yeah.
And, waking up with one on my lap or something. But anyway, I did go, and, as many doubts as I had about the whole situation, I went, and I just fell in love with it. I just fell in love with that. So, and I learned so much. I mean,
how long were you guys there for that hunt?
We were there like 3.5 weeks.
So you got to kind of immerse yourself in it. I was in Africa for 2 weeks, and it was split. My time was split between South Africa and Kenya. but I was able to kind of immerse myself, not just in the touristy part, but in real life. And I think that that's what draws you back, is being able to not just visit for a couple of days, but be there.
I think you're so right, because, as much as my dreams had been to go like to the Serengeti and be on a tourist thing where you're on a bus with all these people and, see the wildlife not afraid, I think it would have been, I mean, I'm not saying that wouldn't be wonderful. I encourage anyone to do it, because both kinds of tourism are needed in Africa. Mm-hmm. But I think I would have missed out on so much, because we were in like a village, kind of like, it wasn't really a village because it was a hunting camp, but it was 21 rural Africans, Tanzanians, and we were there with them the whole time. So I got there was no moving around or anything. We were with that 21 people the whole time. And then on our safari vehicle, there was, 6 of us. Mm-hmm. So we got so close to them, and I just fell in love with the people as much as I did the country. And I just learned so much. I know this is going to sound really corny, but I feel like those people were put in my life at that particular time for a specific reason. Mm-hmm. And I feel like my background, I just feel like everything came together on that safari, if that makes any sense.
It does.
And, because Lillian, who, if you read my book, you're going to learn a lot about Lillian, but she was our Tanzanian game scout. And in Tanzania, they put a game scout has to go with you on every hunt to make sure everything's legal, and they document everything. Mm-hmm. And they don't have any affiliation with the outfitters. So she was totally new to this whole 20 people as well. So, and she was assigned to Rick and I on our Land Cruiser with our PH and our trackers. And she spoke really good English. So it was we just instantly developed a friendship. She was only 23 years old when I met her. And what an amazing woman. And she just taught me so much. She taught me Swahili. She just taught me so much about, she blew away a lot of my misconceptions,
Yeah.
So as far as like poaching and hunting and things like that. And she is actually the one who really got me understanding how important hunting is to Africa. And that's what she does. She's there to protect animals. So who better to hear it from?
It's true. No, I think that's a huge point that you're making right there, is learning from those who live in this, who live there, who are doing the things that you are trying to learn about. That's like, I could listen to them all day and grow heaps in that kind of support versus, some person over here in the States going, well, this is why, and this is why we do it. And this is why. No, I mean, I can definitely learn from somebody having a conversation. I'm sitting here listening to you, but you in turn learned it from somebody who was in the middle of it, who is giving you firsthand why this works, why she does what she does.
Yeah, it was amazing. Like, one of the first things I remember is we came across some elephant bones, and they weren't from anything that our safari group had ever hunted. So mm-hmm. They knew that it could have been natural causes. It was too late to tell by then, or it could have been poaching during the off season. But we were, looking at the bones and everything, and Lillian was explaining to me just how important hunting was, because, well, we got explaining about how dangerous the animals are, and that one of the I always thought of poaching as just like people wanting to come in for the tusks and the lion claws mm-hmm. and things like that I learned that it was so much more than that. Villagers poison the animals and stuff, just because they don't want to. They're just too dangerous and destructive to live with. I mean, they're dangerous, the animals they live with, and that's one of the huge causes of death over there to lions and leopards and any of the dangerous animals. You know, hyenas, and just the poisoning and terrible snares and stuff. And it's not all, like she said, it's not just because they want, a lot of times they're just left there to rot. There's nothing taken from the,
right. It's wasted.
It's wasted. It's not and it's indiscriminate. It's not like an old male, like it would be for hunting, you know. It's just random, and it's all ages, and it's not even done to make money. That's the key point. I always thought it was always to make money, but a lot of the poisoning and deaths over there are just to be rid of the animals. So
I think that my podcast with Olivia had a lot of conversation about that, about putting value to an animal to create a safer environment for them, to create a better habitat for them to grow and to multiply, but also to create that symbiotic life, like the ability to live with them, to those who are living with them, because it's not easy. Here, like you said earlier, they're exotics. It's this magical being that we don't necessarily see unless it's behind bars at a zoo. We see them in cartoons talking and acting like a person. We see them, act. What is the movie that my kids watch all the time? It's got the zebra and it's got the lion. It's got like all
Lion King? Not Lion King.
No, it's the newer one where they can be circus animals, or they travel the world. Yes. The Madagascars, all the Madagascar movies and shows and all of that. But it's personification of these exotic animals. And how do you get that out of your mind when you hear that they are being hunted? Well, go to Africa and they're just like your deer population. They can be nuisances. They can be dangerous, like you said. They can take on this negative part of your life if your life depends on your crops, and it depends on how tall your fence is and all of that. It's totally different. We cannot compare our personified view of an animal to the exotic animals that are over there.
No, it's just totally different, and small things will bring that home to you. But just for instance, when we were there, I wanted to go outside of our little area had some fences around certain areas, but animals could still get in and out if they wanted. But I wanted to walk just outside to take some pictures of elephant footprints, and oh my gosh, it turned into such a huge deal. I had to have an escort. I mean, and if I wanted to go sit by the hippo, there was a hippo pond like 300 yards away, and I had this great idea. I was going to go sit there and read in the afternoon up above on the rocks above the hippo, because I was safe because I was on the rocks from the hippos. So I was worried about the hippos, and they're like, Sue, that's the most dangerous part of the day to be at the water, is because that's when the animals come to feed. So that's also when lions could come in. So I mean, things we don't think about. And then this was probably got me more than anything, but we were coming home from a safari one day, and we ran across 3 people walking, and we, of course, immediately everybody kind of grabbed their guns, got tense, thought maybe they were poachers, but then we saw there was no guns, and Raphael slowed down and we talked to them, and they were 3 members from a camp 5 or 10 miles away and on some border, and they needed medicine. So they had walked to our camp hoping to find medicine. So of course, Raphael put them in the back of our safari vehicle, and later, and it was like 2 or 3 in the afternoon, we were coming back for lunch or something. So it was right in the heat of day. And I said to Raphael, Raphael, why wouldn't they have waited till evening, or why didn't they come in the morning when it was still cooler out instead of the heat of the day? And he said, it's the safest time of day to walk because the lions headed down. I mean, that simple statement, I know that sounds maybe mild, but can you imagine having to plan your entire life around when is the safest day to walk? I mean, it's just things we cannot even comprehend.
No.
You know?
Yeah. I was in Kenya, out at a safari, area. We were kind of in this little, there's nothing else out there. It was like you fly in this little 6-seater airplane out to the dirt runway, and there's a hole in the ground to go to the bathroom. And so we're way outside of Nairobi, like way out. And it was the same thing. Please don't go out at night. Please don't, like, once you have been brought to where you are sleeping, please stay in there unless you hear otherwise. And those are just things that I take for granted here. And, you know, even going over to Colorado, where we were staying over there, I had 16 teenagers with me. And the news was, do not go by yourself. Do not go by yourself. If you're out at night, please do not go by yourself. And it's because of bears. But, well, and moose too, because moose can be very,
yeah, they can be nasty.
They can be pretty nasty. So it was just like I was going back to what I was being told in Africa, and it was coming back to me when I was in Colorado being told, don't go by yourself. But I was like, this is a totally different situation. It's something that you really cannot get your mind to grasp, is what these people live with every day when they are outside of the city and in situations where, like you said, you have to think about, I have to walk in the middle of the day when it is hot so that I don't get hurt.
Yeah, it's just, you know, we were told the same thing. What you're saying about Kenya is we were told, do not leave our tents at night. I mean, they had little bathrooms, kind of makeshift bathrooms attached to our tent. And we were allowed to go in there, but we were told not to leave outside of that. And I know an outfitter he knew of 2 people that died. One went out and was killed by an elephant, and one was killed by a lion by going outside at night. So it's kind of like, no, I mean, it's just things you just, you know, and I was talking with Raphael, who's our PH, and he's lived in Tanzania his whole life. He started as a tent attendant, and he worked his way up to tracker, and then he got his PH license. So he's just an amazing man himself. I just loved him to death. He was just so quiet and soft spoken, and just so intelligent as a PH. But anyway, I was somehow talking about paddleboarding here in America, and he said, what about the crocodiles? I mean, the look on his face was like, he was incredulous that I would be paddleboarding on a river. And I had to explain to him, well, we have a few alligators, you know, in the South, whatever, but we don't really have to worry about crocodiles. I mean, it was just, that's something they have to think about. They can't, all that heat in Africa. I always thought, what a cool joke God played on Africa. You know, they gave them all this heat, but then they gave them all this water that you can't get in because you could get eaten.
Right.
So it's like, oh.
No, I was with a group of Maasai, and we were on safari, and we got to see a couple of kills that had happened, not as hunters, but lions. And they had, you know, they were eating, and we got to see crocodiles, of course, and we got to see hippos. And they said, okay, you can get out here at the river. You can get out. You have to stand here. And it was probably very similar with them telling you time of day. Like, we couldn't be there at certain times of day, but we could get out. But there were 6 people surrounding us with spears and guns to protect us.
Yeah.
And I was going, I mean, I don't want to put anybody in any danger. I can sit in the truck. Like, I don't have to get out. I can sit from a distance so that nobody puts their life in danger. And yet and then I forget, and I don't say it because I have to hold myself back and say, this is how they make money. This is what their job is. This is how they are providing for their families. And I remember William was one of our guides, and the things that he taught me, I have a journal with all of the words that they taught me from all of the different parts of the countries. And he would sit there and he would ask questions of, so what is it like to go to university in America? And what is it like to take a walk on the street? Like all of these questions that I take for granted. And I don't know. I think it kind of goes back to, I know that you heard my podcast with Ryan about how we both agree when we leave Africa, we leave a piece of us back there.
You do. I mean, it gives me chills just think about it, because I get emotional.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Africa just gets in you. It really does. It's, it
changes you.
It changes you. It changes you, and when you realize we take so much for granted here, so much for granted, and I don't know. I don't know. I don't even know how to put it in words, but it's a magical place. It's harsh. It's unforgiving. It's magical. It's amazing. It's all these things, but it's very complex. I mean, that's why we gotta, when people make decisions on conservation, you've got to take the African perspective into it. You can't just sit here, in America and have all these opinions until you really understand what the reality of their lives are like.
Yeah. We can't. Yeah. I would never, ever presume to even be able to make decisions based on their lives for them. That's not only is it disrespectful, but it's impossible. My trip to Africa was back in 2005, and I can still remember the smells and the sounds and the noise of not just different words that I had never heard before, but the sounds of whether it was traffic or nature, whatever situation I was in. I remember from the beginning of how foreign it felt to the end to where it felt comfortable. Does that make sense?
Yes, because we were, like I said, we were hundreds of miles. It was a 2.5-hour bush ride from Arusha, so we were way out in the middle of nowhere. And that first night in the tent, when we started hearing, the hyenas started first, and you're hearing hyenas and of course all the other critters going on. And then about 2 a.m. we heard our first lion, and it was just like that. It wasn't like the MGM studios that, that wasn't that kind of a roar. It was just these grunts and these and oh my gosh, it just it was scared you to death, but at the same time it was just so enlivening, or just so mesmerizing, even though you were literally scared to death. But I came to just I loved the nights. I loved listening to those sounds. I called it the African Symphony. That's what I named it. That's what I did in my book, because it was like every symphony was a little different. Every night was just a little different. It depended what animals added to it, and like hyenas were always there. You never missed the hyenas, and there was always hippos and elephants, and the lions were pretty much there every night. But it was just, every night was just a little different. We couldn't wait to wake up in the morning and say, okay, what did you hear last night?
It's almost like a reverence when you're there. It's when you're either at night or during the day, with whatever situation that you're in, there's almost a reverence to it. It's kind of like you're in awe, but it's respect filled. And
exactly.
Yeah, you can't get it anywhere else in the world. You can't.
No, you can't. And it's just, and I tried to tape it and it doesn't work. No. It didn't work.
No, I did that one time in Haiti. So there are roosters everywhere in Haiti, and the roosters are attached to their hen by a string. They're tied together. And so every morning around 3 a.m., a rooster would start crowing right outside of our window. And of course, the windows don't have screens or glass or bars or anything like that. It's just open air. And it was just this daggum rooster crowing in the middle of the night, pitch dark. You can't see anything but this rooster. And all of a sudden you hear flap, 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 boom. And he has flown up to the windowsill, and the chicken that was with him just banged against the wall. And I was going, is this real life? And I tried to record it. Like you said, I tried to record it, and it's just not the same. It is not the same as experiencing it. I think it was hilarious.
That's pretty funny having, see, that needs to go in the book you're going to write.
Right? No, it is. All of the stories, it's kind of like hearing your stories of your experience, where you're a storyteller, you're writing a book, but you're a natural storyteller. Through these podcasts, through conversations, we are storytellers. And that's what passes on information. It's what passes on history. And honestly, without humor in those stories, it can fall flat. There's drama, but I think that humor is so important in telling a story.
I do too. There's plenty of humor in my book, that's for sure, because I can be pretty idiotic at times. So,
tell us a little bit. We keep talking about your book, but I want to kind of get into it right this second, since we are hinting into it. Tell us about your book and how you were inspired to write it.
Well, I've always liked to write, and I'd always written my stories for my friends and family and everything. And my friends and stuff have been telling me for years that I should write a book. And I always was like, who really wants to listen to my stories? Unless you know me, who wants to listen to these stories? So I had always just blew it off. But then when I went to Africa, like you said, it changes you, and I just felt like I finally had something, because I went there I don't want to say so against hunting, but really not understanding really the need for it. You know what I mean?
You were ignorant, and I say that respectfully. You were just ignorant of the culture.
I was ignorant, but and when I talk about, I feel like, I talked about being corny earlier. I feel like I was perfect for this because, first of all, I have a different perspective as a non-hunter. And second of all, but I hadn't opened enough. I know who hunters are. I don't know they're not these evil, vile people that a lot of people like to make them out to be. I mean, hunters are my brothers, my husband, my father, my friends. So I was able to go there with an open mind without this hate already in me, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say hate, but misunderstanding maybe is a better word for it. But so I went with a more open mind. And then as I went there and saw it, I mean, all of a sudden facts and statistics didn't matter. It was common sense.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to tell me any facts or statistics about how much hunting helps, because common sense tells you that the people need a reason to take the extra precautions to deal with these kind of animals.
Yeah.
It makes common sense to understand how habitat is saved by keeping it in hunting, where that keeps that habitat natural and valuable in its natural state, instead of being turned into croplands or pasture. So it all made common sense to me. So anyway, once I got to Africa and I started learning this and evolving in my thoughts, and I just finally felt like I had a story that was worth telling to the world. And plus, the second thing is I made a promise to Lillian, who, as I said, again, was my art game scout. And I promised her I would try to help, people understand why well-managed hunting is so important in Africa.
Yeah.
So basically the book is fulfilling my promise. It took me a few years, and it's been a lot longer journey than I had hoped or expected, because, like I said, this is my first book. So, but it's, here I am.
I think it's
almost done.
You're almost done?
Almost done. I'm getting ready to send it off to formatting here real soon. And Jocelyn Engel, I don't know if you know her from Hunters Inc. She's a editor-in-chief of Hunters Inc.
Mm-hmm.
She felt so. We had been corresponding through some other reasons, and I offered, or anyway, she wanted me to write an article for their magazine, and I just asked her off the cuff a question about something because I was struggling so much, and she came back and offered to act as a project manager and my editor.
That's awesome.
She has taken it to a whole different level. We came up with a new title, a better title. She did some marketing research, and we have a new title, a new cover. She got beta readers like non-hunters, hunters, professional hunters, Africans. She's got all these beta readers to give feedback to make sure, I'm portraying everything right. Plus, Lillian's read the whole book too. The game Scott is telling you about.
Yes.
And she's got a mind like a steel trap. So anytime, and luckily through the internet, I can send her a message and she can answer me back. Like, I'll be like, what was the name of that river we were on?
Mm-hmm.
And
yes,
she could answer all those questions. Or if I was misspelling a Swahili word wrong, she could clarify it. I mean, just from small things to big things, she read everything. But anyway, with Jocelyn coming on board, that too just made it I just think it's going to be that much more of a better book. And I've gotten some really good feedback from the beta readers. So it's really exciting to hear.
That's always scary to put your passion project out there for people to read, not knowing what their response is going to be. Because when you write, or whether you're an artist and you draw or you paint or you write, that's personal, right? It's so personal. Everything that you're putting in there, whether it's you or Lillian, am I doing that person justice? Am I doing the story justice? And so waiting to hear back, you're waiting with bated breath on what are they saying? What are they going to say? Did I mess up? Did I ruin it? Because those are all of the questions that we ask ourselves is, am I doing it right? And that getting the positive response back and hearing you did it right, you did it justice. There might be a few tweaks. That's where constructive criticism comes in. That's where you can make it better. But it's always that waiting with bated breath of how is it going to be received across the platform, whether it's hunters or non-hunters, or like you said, Africans reading it. It's just, it can be exciting, but it can also be so scary, right?
Yeah, it's like I think I've gotten into tears. I mean, like, I'm not like all out bawling, but like I get tears in my eyes pretty much every time I've read a review that comes back, because what Jocelyn did as acting as a mediator, this meant I didn't know the people. So when they were commenting, they weren't commenting to me. I mean, they weren't commenting, they didn't know me. So they could be totally honest. So it was really, getting the comments back was so encouraging, because like I've changed. I mean, the views of non-hunters have even changed. They said, oh my gosh, I find myself really sorry that the amount of hunters are decreasing. I mean, that's pretty amazing coming from a non-hunter and stuff. Mm-hmm. And other people so anyway, I think it's encouraging, but yeah, it is scary. You're right. Because you don't know what you're going to hear.
Yeah. And when you put so much into it, and you put your heart and you put your soul, and you put every ounce of you into something that you feel so strongly about it, you kind of have to brace yourself for any kind of response, but you really hope that people see that same passion coming through your words.
Yeah, I hope so. And I'm hoping to take them on like a journey of, I don't want people to think it's all like I've tried to. It's an adventure. It's an adventure, mm-hmm. And then I weave in all these things I learned, and I weave in some facts, and because I backed up everything I learned with research. But it's an adventure, and it's a fun book. It's not all just like pound with facts or preaching or anything. It's an entertaining adventure that you learn as you go kind of deal.
Which are the best kind of ways to learn, in my personal opinion. I learn more from people's stories than from facts. Like you said, I love that you said that it went from facts and statistics to common sense. Like, what a statement in that itself. I think you can apply that to anything in life. You can read about it all you want. You can see it on television. You can be told one thing or another, but when it changes to just common sense, it means you've accepted that knowledge and have applied it in some way, or you have seen it applied. And I gain more from people's stories than from them telling me what to do. I learned from how they learned their lesson along that way.
Yeah, I think it's way better that way than, because first of all, you don't remember facts and statistics and all that stuff anyway. You remember what speaks to your heart, more or less.
It's true. It's true. And Africa sings to your heart. I'm sorry. They don't speak. They sing to your heart.
Yes, you're right. That's why, that's perfect when you say that, because like I said, I call it the African symphony, the sounds of the night, was but that's the first chapter of the book. But yeah, it does. It just gets in your soul. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Have you got plans of going back?
Well, we actually went back, just this May.
Okay.
And to Namibia this time. That won't be in the book at all, though, because that's a whole nother deal. But yeah, it was still amazing. We it was a totally new experience. I went on a Cape Buffalo hunt with my husband on Waterberg Plateau, and oh my gosh, that was scary. It was so different than the open savanna. It was really brushy and thick, and you're literally 10 yards from those Cape Buffalo, and it was my heart was pounding on multiple occasions. I think we stalked buffalo for one particular buffalo for 24 hours.
Whoa!
And, I mean, not at one time. We kept going after him. We knew
over time.
And we kept finding his tracks. We would follow him for 4 or 5 hours, and he was so smart. But anyway, but there was no lions and hyenas on Waterberg Plateau. So it just drove home to everything that I just wrote, because what people don't realize, so many people want to say that phototourism is the answer. And granted, they need phototourism and ecotourism badly, but they need both kinds of tourism because they protect different areas.
Yes.
Hunting tourism protects it protects the wild areas that phototourists don't really want to go to. I mean, it's like when we were in the Simba camp, I mean, the roads were rough. It was hot. There was no amenities. There was just, it would have taken 16 hours of driving to get there if we had not gone on a little bush plane. So it's way more expensive to go way out there. And we had 21 people taking care of us. And it's like, photo tourists don't want that. And that's what part of that common sense thing I mentioned. When I was in a Simba camp and they told me all these things, like they told me they were going to break down camp after we left. And I said, what? I mean, I was devastated. That was my little Shangri-La.
Yeah.
I felt so attached to it. But they said, yeah, the poachers will move in during the off season. We have to tear it down, but that's okay. We have to rebuild it in the spring, and it gives all this work to a village. It takes a village 30 people 30 days to build it. And anyway, I don't know where I was going with that. But,
I have not even thought about that in the off season, what they have to do. I did not even think about that and the job opportunities that presents.
Yeah, I was all sad, when Joel told me this. Joel was the camp host, which you'll get to know him too. He's just a wonder. But anyway, he told me, don't worry, it's a good thing. He says it gives all these people employment in the spring, and they don't have much employment in these villages. The nearest village is 4 hours away. So 4-hour Jeep ride away. And that was another thing I learned that Joel explained. He said, you have to understand that the game park, we bordered we bordered the Ruaha National Park.
Okay.
So we were right on the border, but the river where our camp was, or dried up river, I should say, was the border. So we were like a buffer zone. They said that the national parks like to have hunting concessions on the outside of national parks because it acts like a buffer. Because there's, poachers don't want to be where hunters are, and
Correct.
all that goes with. So it acts like this buffer zone to protect the national park. And I'm telling you, they take that serious. Like we'd be chasing something, Cape Buffalo, for instance, one time, we were chasing it, and Rick and I are so involved, and you're on the ground, and I'm just watching every footstep, but worried about snakes and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And next thing you know, the hunt's just over, and I'm like, what the heck? And they're like, oh, this is the riverbed. We hit the riverbed. It's over. So the animal crossed into the park. So that's why you have a PH. They know these areas, and
Correct.
they know what's legal and not legal. And anyway, but yeah, and when you're bumping around those roads and you're that far out, and after Joel told me all these things, I thought, oh my gosh, it's true. If I was just a photo tour, if I hadn't come with Rick, I would be going to the Serengeti or, all these major places, which are wonderful. I don't want to detract from them.
But they have plenty of tourism there.
Yes. And I would have gone there. I would have never chosen this chunk of land to go to. I would have gone to somewhere that was a couple hours away from the airport. It would have been easy, less expensive. I would have never come out here to protect, Musimba Camp, the land there. It was 560 square miles of land that hunting concession was protecting. So that's huge.
It
and
is.
That's what people have to understand. Hunting tourism and photo tourism have to work in conjunction with each other because they protect different parts of land.
Yes. Yes. And if you hear the argument all the time, well, look at where the money goes. Follow the money, follow the money, follow the money. Well, hunting money over in Africa, that doesn't just, you hear it all the time. It goes for anti-poaching. It goes for the habitat. It goes for the people that are living there. But actually getting into it, like what you are saying, you're seeing so much more of not just money. You're seeing the hands-on impact that people have, whether they're African or they're from anywhere else in the world coming in to do the hunt. You're seeing that impact, not just where the money's going. The money's important, and money is important in this world, and it gets things done, but the hands that work that camp are doing so much more than just providing a hunt for one person.
Oh, when you see that meat strung up to dry, because there's no refrigeration, so all the extra meat, all the meat that we didn't eat, we ate everything that was harvested. But when you see all that meat and you know that that's going to their families and then they arrive village and they're taking that home, it just hits you in a whole different way. And when you get to know these people, I think that's what's so special about like what you did too, is I think if you would go to certain areas, you maybe meet people here for an hour and then somebody else for an hour. But when you really get to spend time with people and connect with them, it makes the difference, I think. Because that's what in Namibia we moved around a lot more, so I didn't get to build the relationships with the people that I did in Tanzania, so that part was different for me too. But yeah, I just loved when you can build a relationship with the people, and even if you can't, not all of them could speak English, but you still build a relationship just from the things you do together and stuff. It was just it was amazing.
Experience goes a long way. Working along somebody, whether there's a language barrier or not, it goes a long way. One day I will go back for a hunt. It is on my wish list that one day that's going to happen. I was on a medical trip back in the day. We were bringing antibiotics and all of the meds that we could over to different parts of like Kampala and a couple of the other shanty towns that were across Kenya and South Africa. And so to be able to see the need even drives in more, even though we were in the city, for the most part, it drives in more the desire to be a part of that country, because you see the beauty and you see the need. And you can do the same here in the States. You see the beauty of our United States, but you also see the need. So what are you doing to impact around you in your community? You can travel. You can travel wherever, and you can do, any kind of mission trip or medical trip or whatever, and you can make an impact for a short amount of time. But what are you doing for the long run? What are you doing to fully impact the community around you to grow their world a little bit bigger? And you writing this book is doing that. It's growing Lillian's world into ours, and it's sharing that piece of her and that group of people that you were with. You're sharing that in a way that is going to open the eyes of people who might not have ever had a glimpse into a world that is completely foreign to them.
Well, that's what I'm hoping to do. I'm hoping to make it more real to people, to, to put faces and personalities to names. And you hear, you hear somebody's, a couple weeks ago, 2 little boys were killed by lions when they were out looking for lost cattle. But I want people to be able to picture, okay, that's Gogo's children or something. It was our tracker, and he had 4 kids. Of course, they're probably a little bit more grown by now. But anyway, I just want people to think of everybody, put faces to the names. If that makes sense.
It does make sense. It's not just a statistic like you were saying. It's real life. It's these people's real life. And you're providing not just jobs, but you're providing food. You're providing a way, you yourself are providing a way for their story to be told, where otherwise it might not be told. I wouldn't know about Lillian unless you're talking about her, unless I'm reading about her. These are the important things. This is how, for centuries upon centuries, our history has been passed down through stories, through writings, through verbal passings on, through generation to generation. And without those stories, I believe that a piece of history is lost. So if it can be documented, if it can be passed on, if it can be learned from, then there's value in it. Just like there's value in hunting in Africa, you're placing value on that animal so that they're not going to be poisoned off. They're not going to be trapped because they are a nuisance and they're dangerous. They're going to have value to it. And I don't know, it's the important part of what we do, whether you are a hunter or a non-hunter. If you can be supportive, because we all love animals and we all love the communities that those animals live in, then we can all be a part of the solution versus fighting against each other.
I agree. I just think that, the more we understand, the more people understand, they can support things that makes more sense, that will really work compared to idealistic visions of things that just don't work in reality. Yeah. I mean, we can come up with all the rules in the world here in America or in Western societies. I don't want to blame it all on America or anything, but unless the local people are on board with it, it doesn't work.
No.
It doesn't matter. So you can make these laws, but if their lives are suffering or they're at risk, it's not going to work. It's so important to empower the local people and have them a part of the process for decision making.
Oh yeah.
And as far as your hunting goes, you definitely need to go on a hunting safari. Even I'm saying this as a not hunter, but it's a whole different thing being on the ground with those,
Well, the second
when
you
you're,
told me how your husband wanted to hunt, I was like, okay, he's my type of hunter, because that's how, like, I don't want to shoot from a truck. I want to get down on my feet, and I want to actually give the respect and credit that these animals are due in hunting them.
and it's so different than what you think. You see TV and the zebras are standing around, and it's just so much harder. They're so smart, and you have to get close enough to them. Their senses are so amazing, and it's really challenging. And I mean, it's so funny, but zebras, I just was thinking that would be like a shooting gallery or something, but it was so hard. I mean, we went after them I don't know how many times, and anyway, it was, but I just loved being on the ground. I mean, I could watch. Gogo was our head tracker, and I just adored him, and watching him work was just amazing to watch those trackers do their thing. And they are just, I could just follow I didn't care if we ever caught up to the animal, to be honest. I was just happy following behind, and I felt safe because I was always fourth in line. I always figured snakes were gone by
the time they get to you.
And I just felt, at first, of course, I was nervous in the beginning, but the more I was there, I just felt like I was surrounded by such expertise with Raphael, our PH, and then Gogo and Abdullah and Lillian. She had her machine gun. She always had a machine gun with her. And then, of course, my husband. So I felt so safe. I mean, stuff can still happen in Africa at any time, but it was just so, it was just intense, and it was just mesmerizing watching them do their thing. And like I said, I never care if we got near the animal or not. I was happy just traipsing through the woods, hunkered down, trying to see footsteps. It was pretty amazing.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And I can't wait to read the book. Tell everybody the name of the book and how to follow you, but also how they can, if there's a way that they can get on a list, or just tell everybody all of your information.
Okay. Well, the book's name is Cries of the Savanna, and it's an adventure and awakening, a journey to understanding African wildlife conservation. So that's the subtitle. It's a little long, but the main thing is Cries of the Savanna. And that kind of has twofold, the cries that I listen to at night, all their sounds, and then basically the cries for the world to awaken, essentially, to the truth of how we can save African wildlife. But I have a website, tidwell.com, and there you can read my first chapter if you want. You can sign up for my email list, which would be great, because then I can let you know when the book's ready, because it's still probably at least a month out. I'm hoping 6 weeks. I'm hoping November 1st, but like I said, this is my first time. I'm still working through all the details. But yeah, sign up for my email list on SueTidwell.com. On Instagram, you can follow me at Sue Tidwell Writer. And I'm also on Facebook at SueTidwell.writer, I think.
Okay.
But main thing I post on is Instagram.
Yeah.
But I guess that's about it. But yeah, I'd love to have your support of the readers, and hopefully trying to spread this message with the world, and even hunters. It's amazing to me, Amy, how many hunters don't like hunting in Africa. Have you found that?
I have. I think it's one way or another. I think it's a little bit of both. I think that it's based on preference. Like, there are things that I don't have a desire to hunt. There are things that I do have a desire to hunt one day. And I think that it is just based on preference. But I think that you do have all of the sub-levels of hunters, of who believes in one thing and who believes in another, who is against trophy hunting, who is for it. And I think that that's where we have the most conversation right now, is as long as it's ethical and legal and doing a good job of giving back and putting the money and putting the effort and the manpower back into our habitats, I think that we should be supporting that. Whether you whether it's your preference or not. So I think that it's with everything. Everybody has their own opinion right now. And I think that you just have to sometimes get past personal preferences when people are doing it still correctly and they're still doing it ethically and legally.
And, and I think a lot of this too is it is just so misunderstood over there. And the whole trophy thing gets me anyway, because
I hate using that
what
word.
What is one person's trophy? I hate that word. My nephew's mule deer 2x2 could be a trophy to him because it's his first mule deer.
Yep.
I mean, you don't, it's all subjective,
Correct.
The animals my husband got in safari were by no means what anyone else would consider a trophy, but to him it sure was. So I don't know, that's such a subjective thing, but anyway, hopefully people can just hopefully we'll
support you and get this story out and enjoy it. I think that it's twofold. There's learning and there's enjoyment, and you really need to have both to have that kind of experience. So I'm excited for it to come out, and I'm excited for your story to get out and for Lillian's story and everybody else that was involved in that, to just hear their perspective and where they're coming from. And I don't know. I can't wait to read it.
Well, thank you, Amy. I'm so excited too. I can't wait for it to come out too, and for hopefully to reach some more people, and for everybody else to learn about Lillian and Raphael and Gogo and Joel and Hillary and all the group at Masimba Camp. So it will be exciting for them to get to know them a little bit.
Well, thank you, Sue. I appreciate this.
But thank you, Amy. I sure appreciate you having me on here.